And now to our preview of the Bank of England. It's the big event of the week. Mark Carney and his colleagues will lay it out 1 month ahead of the elections. So again, it's a super Thursday. What makes it super is the quarterly inflation report, a more detailed outlook similar to the ECB's quarterly meeting when it has new forecasts, or the Fed's meeting when it has new forecasts and the press conference. This is sort of a more important meeting by the central bank in the UK. And it's dubbed Super Thursday. The meeting minutes as well are released there as well. The Bank of England has a few dilemmas. On one hand, the weaker pound pushes inflation higher. It reached 2.3% at its peak. That's, of course, the result of Brexit, and the unemployment rate is low, only 4.7%. So the UK economy is doing well. Inflation is rising. The Bank of England should raise rates. We indeed had one member, Christine Forbes, who voted for a rate hike last rate decision. Sorry, that was back in April. On the other hand, wages are stuck. So they're also at 2.3%. That means that standards of living are flat because prices are rising at the same pace as wages are rising. So basically, there's no improvement. Brexit is yet to bite. We've seen that growth slowed down significantly in Q1, 0.3% quarter over quarter, after 0.6, 0.7, after the Brexit vote, after the Euro referendum. So it's beginning to bite. So, like every other central bank, the Bank of England is likely, given this dilemma, not to do anything, to sit on its hands and stay away from the spotlight. Elections are coming in exactly 4 weeks after the decision by the Bank of England on June 8th. They want to stay out of the spotlight. They were criticized quite heavily for their immediate action after Brexit, cutting interest rates, adding more QE, and for their forecasts before Brexit, talking about the danger to the UK economy, something that so far did not materialize. So they'll prefer, like many other central banks, to stay out of the spotlight. What will Mark Carney or the Bank of England do to the British pound? So the recent rise in the pound from around region of 120 to 125 to now just under 130 is welcomed by the Bank of England. Okay, contrary to many other central banks, they want a slightly stronger currency at the moment. The pound just fell too much, okay, and it pushed inflation of imported goods, especially, too high. But Carney and his colleagues here would not like to see the pre-Brexit levels. They would not like to see 145, 150, 155. They would like it around 130. So again, not rocking the boat remains the main message. So what should we watch out for? The immediate impact will come from the vote. Last time we had one member voting for a hike, and this time we're expecting a unanimous vote. Okay, so less pressure for a rate hike. There are 9 members in the Monetary Policy Committee, MPC. A second move for the pound will come from the tone about the economy, mostly from the quarterly inflation report, less so from the meeting minutes. So my baseline scenario is that they'll keep everything balanced. That's the high probability scenario, expecting inflation to moderate, and Q1, looking at the Q1 growth drop to be a bit temporary. Everything is okay. Still, of course, cautious, still ready to act, but nothing really significant. Nothing to see here move along. The second scenario is here, Mark Carney biting his fingernails, a bit worried. And they'll be talking about the erosion of wages, how salaries in the UK are not growing, the British consumer suffering. That the weaker growth vindicates the Bank of England's forecast. Maybe they'll tap themselves on the back for finally getting their forecasts, the gloomy forecast, right. They might expect more weakness to come along. And again, no votes for hike and the pound falls. This has a lower probability, but you never know. Maybe they don't like the recent strength of the pound, and maybe they'll want to defend themselves politically. And of course, there's always the optimistic scenario. They would not like to upset the UK government ahead of the elections. Here are Prime Minister Theresa May and Mark Carney. Still one vote for a hike. still some level of optimism. Optimism about growth, optimism about inflation, and the pound will rise. This has a lower probability. I don't expect it to materialize, but always we should look out for that. Okay, so to conclude our Bank of England forecast, preview, a lot of information at once. The vote impact can be reversed. So first of all, we'll get data about who voted, how many people voted for rate hike, probably none. Then we'll have the other stuff coming out. The meeting minutes less important than the quarterly inflation report, which is a more detailed document. They're unlikely to rock the boat. The higher pound now is likely to balance things out. A bit of a lower inflation, less erosion of wages, and not too damaging for growth. Watch about comments about the weaker growth, the path of inflation. They have this fan chart. And so with the Bank of England not telling us too much, perhaps we should look out for the data coming out next week. Next week, we have retail sales, inflation, and the jobs report, all also critical for politics, because these are top-tier figures, the last of this kind before the UK elections. Okay, so before we move on to the Canadian dollar, any questions about the Bank of England?